Hello and welcome back to Living Lost podcast. Today I am back again and I am joined by Talia Foxler. Thank you so much for being here and joining me today. I guess before we will just get into this, who are we speaking about today? What's a bit of your story, and we'll kind of just, see what direction this heads us in.
Yeah. Oh. So my dad unfortunately passed away on the 23rd of December due to COVID, basically. It was quite a bit of a shock in a way. He got COVID in like October, was like double vaccinated, everything. And at first I was just like, oh, like dad's got COVID. And I was like, okay, like bit of a worry, but nothing. You're just like, oh yeah, everyone's now getting it. What's going to happen sooner or later. And then unfortunately, I guess things kind of gradually got worse and worse. And then there's always that like, oh, this could happen, but it's not, you don't think, oh, it's going to happen to you. And then, it just kind of got obviously worse.
Yeah. I mean, so obviously, when you first heard that, your dad had COVID, I had COVID. I'm sure, a lot of people out here kind of, and, you're aware that there is like some kind of severity to it, but like you don't expect it to almost happen to you and your family. And so when your dad was first diagnosed, kind of, did you feel like a sense of like, threatened by the looming of the severity, or were you just kind of like, oh, this is COVID, like
just kind of like, oh, COVID. Like I remember I was in Leeds, and then because my birthday on that weekend, and then I was gonna go home myself, and then my mum was like, oh, like, oh, your dad's got COVID, and I was like gutted because I was like, oh, I wanted to go home and go out for dinner and this, that, and the other. But I was just kind of like, oh, like I'll be fine. He'll be better in like a week or two time.
So, and it was what, and once he went to hospital, what was his kind of progression like? Was it kind of quite fast? What kind of
like at first it was like okay, nothing like too concerning, but was like, oh yeah, he's going to hospital just because he's having trouble with his breathing, but like he'll be okay, like nothing too serious. And then it just kind of like gradually got worse. And then I remember one day my mom was like, oh, like, yeah, dad's been put on a ventilator, but like again, like nothing to worry about too much, like it's just to help him. And like obviously we heard about so many people in this situation who have been like on ventilators for like weeks and months and like recovered. So we were like, oh, like, yeah, he'll be fine, like he'll be back home in like a month or two time. Basically.
Well, so like obviously being, it's one of those things where like, my mum was, very much in when towards the end of her life, she went she was in hospital, but not a hospice, but she was in hospital, and there was like a lack of certainty. I think that's what I found particularly difficult. The lack of, I wasn't aware if, although I heard her results and I knew that, she may pass, there was still like some hope. And I think it's the hope that really kind of destroys you in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Like I remember like when I was there till the very end, and on the night at the hospital, they were like, the machines were basically keeping him alive, and the doctors were like, oh, like this is gonna happen now, whatever. And in my head I was like, oh, like it'll be fine. And then I remember like I went down to the canteen with my brother, and we started talking to like these two people, and she was like, oh, like hope, like there's always miracles, like this, that, and the other. And you can't help but think like tiny glimpse.
I guess it's just like that sense of like that longing, and like the difference. I guess like my mum had a really long journey. It was a journey over 11 years, and like in a way, like I kind of was prepared for what was going to come because of how long I was kind of dealing with that difficulty, but almost your journey was incredibly short. Like it,
Mm.
so how was that to deal with? Like going from having a parent to losing a father, in a really short space of time.
Yeah, difficult as you can imagine, obviously,
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like as well because COVID's such like sort of recent thing, like not that it's just the fact that it was COVID is just and he did the stuff like right to prevent it, like he worked from home and this, that, and the other. And like my dad's been like not well in the past, but like he's been better. Like he had like years ago, he had like a triple heart surgery and like recovered, like miraculously was fine. I think it's still a shock. It's obviously going to take some time to adjust. I feel like being at uni is still, I'm still kind of back in like normality. So I kind of not forget what's happened, but obviously when I go home, it's like, oh well, this again. Not like, do you know what I mean? It's I feel like more difficult to kind of come to terms with a bit.
Yeah, most definitely. I think when you're at university, you're kind of faced with you're it's like you're home away from home, and you're not your
Yeah.
university life. I always feel like it's a bit like Love Island. Not Love Island, but you go to university and you have your uni life, and like you don't
Mm,
really like your uni life isn't necessarily your actual, your home life and what's going on
yeah,
in that
100%.
sense. It's just kind of relevant to uni, and like as soon as you go home, you're hit with what the realization that you've lost a parent, and that
Mm.
is really hard. And like obviously, like how are you finding being at uni, and I guess dealing with because it is very soon, and dealing with the loss of your father.
Um, like I think I was a bit nervous to come back because obviously I was saying all throughout Christmas break, and then it got to a point where my mum was kind of like, oh, like we kind of need to get back to some normality. Like I guess I can't sit at home all day. So I was kind of like, I guess nervous, but I'm happy I came back. Like I'm lucky that I have like such a good supportive friendship group here, and people that I live with and stuff. So I feel okay. I feel in a way distracted. I like to keep busy. Obviously there's like that moment for like you're in the shower or I'm in bed or driving and then you think like, yeah, oh yeah, like this happened to me. Like then you kind of like get lost in thought, but then I don't know, and then 2 seconds later I'm like, oh I need to go do this. But I don't know how. I guess maybe I'll feel different in a month's time or two. Then that's because I'm still a bit numb to the idea in a way. But
Yeah.
then again, because he was ill, because he was in hospital for like 2 months while I was here anyway. Not that obviously didn't get used to him not being around, but it wasn't like I don't know, kind of used to sort of not talking to him in a way.
Yeah.
And my dad used to work away a lot when I was like younger or in school and stuff. He'd like work away for like the week and then be back on the weekends. But then obviously throughout COVID started, he started working back at home again. So obviously I saw him mostly when I obviously went home from uni. But yeah, it's a tough one.
No, it is. And something I kind of really relate to is you didn't say it, but like I kind of stuck something in my head, and it's
Mm,
that sense of not almost feeling real, and like yes, I'm aware my mum's not here, but like there are days when it like because when I'm at uni, you don't see her every day, you don't call her every day, but like there are
yeah,
certain times where I'm like tomorrow, my birthday, I know that's
yeah,
going to be somewhat difficult in the sense that like I would get birthday messages or something that
100%.
she would put like a post on Facebook or whatnot. And I think things
Yeah,
like that really stick out to me, and things that make it harder. Like, it's not like I think when people look at grief, they think, right, this could be like an everyday phenomenon. And
mm,
it isn't, but it's when it does come, and I'm coming up to, well, it's been 2 years and a bit, and I find
yeah,
that random days, like you said, I could be in the shower and it's almost a sense of realization. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, 100%. I feel like like the smallest thing could either like trigger me or like, oh yeah, like my dad used to do that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I agree.
So
But
what are those kind of triggers for you, if you could like pinpoint them?
uh, just like I don't know. Sometimes I'll be thinking I want to do something like my phone, for example. My phone needs changing, and like my dad would do that. Or like I was trying to reset my Apple ID password, and I was like, well, normally my dad would sort that because I don't know it.
Yeah.
Or even just like I don't know, a songs or because my dad was a bit of a foodie. So like every
Yeah.
time we always go out for like lunch and stuff, like my mum would never want a dessert, but like my dad would be like, come on, we'll get one.
Let's get a little dessert.
Yeah. I think like, yeah, I don't really know. Just I don't know. It was just
It's the small things though, isn't it? It's
yeah.
like you said,
Yeah.
the the desserts, for me, my mum's song is like Dancing Queen, and
Yeah.
that, there's this club in Nottingham called like Ocean on a Wednesday, and it plays like really like cheesy music, and so I always
Yeah.
hear like Dancing Queen every week, and like
Yeah.
so at first when I heard it, it was kind of like a bit of an upsetting kind of like realization. Like now it's more
Mm.
so, now it's something I don't, it's like kind of like mum's dancing with me, so I do like that, but
Yeah.
like it is how those little things definitely have a lot more significance now, if that makes sense.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It's like, yeah, my dad's song was, the Justin Bieber song, Despacito.
Despacito.
Yeah. That
That was
always
his
used to
song.
come on in the car when, like, if I was with him, and obviously he didn't know the words properly. So he'd like, mum would like, oh yeah, this could be our
That's such a
song. I'd be like,
classic dad.
he's like, oh, what is this like gibberish? But I don't know. I feel like I couldn't listen to that song. Or maybe I could.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, it's definitely hard, I think, because they have such like an imprint. It's obviously music's incredibly powerful, but it's like the story behind it, and you know
Yeah,
some
100%.
sometimes you listen to a song and it doesn't mean anything to you, it's just a song, but
Mm,
like when a song is more than a song, and it has this meaning, it almost
yeah,
evokes such serious emotions in a way.
yeah. There was my brother's first. My brother got married in the summer, and his first dance song. It like a while ago. Like I remember it played at. I work at Pizza Express in Leeds, and at uni, and it played. And I was like, like Happy Memories, like good song. And then obviously when my dad was unwell, they like played music for him and stuff. And that was one of the songs, and like it was just really difficult to listen to, and I feel like it would be really difficult now maybe to listen to that song again.
Yeah,
Maybe.
definitely. Have you also found like in terms of like, I don't know, movies and things you kind of watch, have you found yourself watching like, less, not kind of less intense, I don't know, narratives, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, have you seen Afterlife? It's
I have, yeah. I haven't watched it to the new series, but I did watch the first one.
like, I
Um,
found that particularly difficult to watch.
yeah, 100%.
um I think it was kind of the point behind it, but it was, for something that feels almost too real, I find watching kind of, could be something so simple, like I watched How I Met Your Mother. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
But there was like one of the episodes, or in one of the seasons, like Marshall was the character and his dad dies, and I remember watching this, and I just got really upset. Like it's like, obviously it's a sad thing, but the fact that something so difficult has happened to us, it kind of brings up all these emotions.
Yeah.
But that's just me on a little tangent. But anyway, so like I think one of the hardest things about loss is, the future, and how,
Mm.
I guess, scary it is. Is there anything that kind of like sticks out to you that you're particularly scared of, or that kind of like upsets you when you think of like a future without him?
Uh, I guess like my next few milestones, like obviously he was there for when I graduated, but like he would be there for like when I get married or when I walk down the aisle or like yeah, or when I when I bring a boy back home or you know what I mean? Or just yeah, or when I get a job because as dads do, I don't know about you, but my dad always used to joke that like I spend all his money.
Oh yeah, of course.
And because obviously I've got two older brothers, but I just no, I got spoiled, but I guess special treatment, if you'd say.
Yeah.
um, and like my dad always used to say, "Close you are," he'd be like, "Oh, like when you're a famous artist, like you can pay me back." He's like, "Maybe you'll buy me a car one day." So obviously a bit of a shame, obviously, that he won't be there for that, or yeah, for any of it really. Obviously, he still will be there with me, but not physically.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like a different kind of feeling. Like I'm a little, I don't know what your philosophy is on like, spirituality, but I'm definitely,
mm,
I believe in, these feathers, that come
yeah,
to me, that I see that as mums guiding me in a sense. But I guess it's, you know, it's nice. I think anyway, it's nice to think that they're not gone entirely, that they still have like a
yeah,
mark that
100%.
they've left, if that makes sense
Yeah,
to you.
I agree with you completely. Um,
And yeah, so just like obviously you said you have siblings, and um how have like how is your kind of interaction? Have you both kind of, have you all grieved in like a similar way, or I mean, yeah, or like how has it kind of been as a family?
um, I guess like yeah, so I was with two older brothers. One lives in London, the other one lives in America. So
Oh wow.
throughout this whole period of time, obviously I was going home like often anyway, and like if my mum needed me, I'd just obviously it's like a 45-minute drive from Leeds to Manchester. My brother was home quite a bit. Josh, he's the one that lives in London. Obviously my brother Jordan like wasn't really there. Obviously he was like a phone call away, but and obviously he was gonna come home, but and mum was just kind of like, oh, like things are like okay at the moment. Like you don't feel like you have to come back just yet. Like obviously expensive and all the rest of it. I guess yeah, and obviously they're a lot older than me. They're in their 30s, so in a way, I feel like not they're kind of like father figures to be a bit as well. Like,
Yeah.
and obviously I feel like this brought the family a lot closer together. So obviously when it happened, my brother Jordan came back from America, and Josh been there for that whole time. So yeah, I was always close, but I feel especially close now.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, have you found it
yeah,
difficult, obviously, I guess, being not by yourself, because obviously you're never really by yourself, but like,
mm,
you know, I something I found particularly hard when I was at uni, when this
yeah,
happened, was the fact that at the time I did isolate myself, and then when I came home, obviously I had my family around me, and although the dynamic was a bit difficult because of I guess the lack of conversation, there still was that
mm,
familiarity. How
yeah.
being like kind of without the closeness of your family, has that been difficult, or not, so to speak?
Uh, I
And when I
don't
say
think
closeness, I
so.
mean like the proximity, if that makes sense.
Oh, like this, like now that I'm back
Yeah,
here and there.
yeah,
I guess I feel okay, and that's because I've got a good like supportive friendship group, and we're always in contact with my family anyway. Obviously a bit nerve wracking at first, thinking, oh, like I am gonna have to come back to uni, and obviously I'm really excited to, but I'm the only one like kind of. Obviously, my friends can be there for me and help me, but obviously there's only so much that they can understand, I guess, and then it's like everyone else is kind of getting back into the swings and doing normal things. And I'm like, not that I obviously don't want to rush myself, but again, not necessarily to isolate myself, but then also, but then make sure that it's not too much for me in a way.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
I think the whole thing is you just got to pace yourself and like know, you got to know your own, like what works for you, because like what works for me will not work for you, but like it's
yeah,
it's it like that is, I think, very important when, you know, you do go to uni. And obviously, you know, for those listening, it's something that, you know, I couldn't stress enough, but it's about like working kind of at your own pace, and not doing, you know, what you think you should be doing, but doing what, like, going out just because you're a uni student might seem fun, but like if you have,
Mm,
you know, this intolerable, this thing that's lying on your chest, like it might not be the best thing to do. So it's like it's about kind of understanding you as a person, and knowing what works for you. But how have you, so obviously, you know, you said you've got a great supportive friendship group, but have you found like how have they discussed your grief? Because I noticed like grief and loss was a very difficult conversation for a lot of my mates
yeah,
to kind of interact with, not because they didn't want to ask, but because they just felt I wouldn't respond well to it. So like, how have you kind of
yeah.
felt?
I think it's a way I can relate to you in that sense. Like, obviously at first when it first happened, like obviously getting floods and messages like,
Oh
how are
yeah, yeah,
you?
yeah, yeah.
Like the how are you doing? This and the other, and it's like, yeah, great. But yeah, I feel like now it's kind of calmed down a bit. But I think that's because obviously my friends who aren't like necessarily at uni have like obviously checked up on me and stuff. But I guess they don't. I feel like even they're waiting for me to say something, because I think they're scared that it either will trigger me, or I guess they don't really know where they stand with it, which I understand because I feel like I'd probably be the same in
Yeah,
that sense.
yeah, I guess it is a very difficult conversation. You know, I never really mind when, if someone were to ask me, like if I was in a position where I wasn't up for the chat, then yeah, I would
Yeah.
make that aware. But I think there's like this hesitancy to, you know, start really just ask, I guess, about just emotions in general, and just like see like,
Mm.
you know, a message like how are you doing is okay, but like at the same time, like you know, you're really not okay, but
Mm.
it's almost like you're not going to go into detail about what you're experiencing because you feel
Yeah.
it, there's like these, I don't know, complications with loss, which makes it this mad, baffling experience, you know.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like my mom was really keen on the fact that like she was like, oh, like we can always talk about dad. Like I feel like obviously I'd never forget my dad, but I feel like she thinks that obviously talking about him will always make feel like he is around, which I do agree with. But also it's like I don't know.
Yeah, like
So,
I find, I also found talking to my family harder than, like, I can obviously talk about mum and speak to her with people who I'm close with and not so close with, but
mm,
as soon as I talk to my family, it's almost like the conversation, the whole atmosphere, the mood is completely different.
yeah,
I don't know why. I think maybe because of like there is like this hesitancy, but I definitely found that side of things, you know, particularly difficult. But
mm,
again, I that's just the nature of loss. But yeah. So obviously, when the loss first happened, like what was going through, like the 23rd of December, a little bit before Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, what was
yeah.
what was going through your head like at that point?
I think it was a bit of a mess. I think I was just so like shocked because obviously he'd been unwell, and that's the day I came home from uni on like that Tuesday for like Christmas break, and I was gonna go visit him with my brother because he was up from London, and I yeah, we were gonna go visit, sorry, and then we said that he had a bit of he had a bit of a temperature and stuff, and so like he's not feeling very well today, like I wasn't gonna go visit, and then my mom got like called in to go see him, and then I had to go with, but I didn't really want to because the last time we got like called into like that like family room, it just wasn't like good news. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna go. And then it just kind of happened so quickly. Like I don't even know, they like kind of pulled it aside and they were like, oh, like he is deteriorating, like he has an infection. And then I think I was just so like shocked, and I don't know, I think through the whole, obviously I was aware of everything that was going on through the whole experience, but I feel like my mum kind of played it down to me a bit, but I feel like I wasn't really fully aware as to like how, not how bad things were, but she was kind of the reassurance of like, it'll be okay. So I
Yeah.
think I was a bit like taken back, and just, and then obviously 'cause it was Christmas, like everyone was posting on Instagram about like their Christmas lunch and like family time and this, that, and the
Yeah.
other. And we didn't really do Christmas like that big in my family, but we have Christmas lunch and I'll go to my auntie's and stuff. But obviously it was a bit different this year. But yeah, just, I
Yeah.
think I was very numb to the whole thing. I was like, I can't believe what just happened in the last 24 hours.
Yeah. Also that whole point of like Christmas and social media, it's I fucking hate it. And like, you
Yeah.
know, when you on that kind of day, like obviously everyone's like happy Christmas, like what am I happy about? Like that, you know, that
Mm,
it's not a happy Christmas. It's just a you know, you're having dinner with with your family with one less person at the table. And like, you know, I obviously mum passed in October, which is, you know,
yeah.
but like, you know, just before Christmas, that is quite a blow. And I mean, it's all a blow really. But
Yeah.
you know, how have you found your grief? You know, the last month or so, obviously. Like how has that changed, or has it kind of just stayed the same?
I feel like sort of coming to terms with it a little bit, maybe. Um, I guess, yeah, just like, I don't know, it's like the little things that, oh, I went out for lunch for my grandma's birthday the other day, and it's like, oh, like we went to the Ivy, and then the last time I went to the Ivy was my graduation thing, and it was my dad's birthday, and like it was just like a little thing. My grandma got this dessert which my dad got, and like
Yeah.
it was just really weird. But then I don't know, it's just sort of coming to terms with it, but obviously not fully. I'm still very like much like, it's just, I don't know, it's like looking back on like, we had obviously my family group chat, and it's like seeing dad in the group chat, and it's just like dad's in the group chat, but dad's not
Yeah.
not in the group chat. It's just little things. I don't know, like I haven't like gone to like read through the chats or anything. I don't think I could. I'm not ready for that, I don't think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, yeah.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult. And like that, just that, like we said before, there are all these little things that, you know, people necessarily wouldn't have thought about. You know, I do message mum, you know, and I do read our chats,
Mm.
but that's not something I could always have done. You know, it's like, sorry, my nose just itched. I was like, um, but it was like, yeah, but it is so hard because of the memories that are associated with what we've experienced. And you know, when your dad was like in hospital,
Mm.
how were you kind of feeling? Like how did you know, you were you like, in the back of your mind, did you think like this was kind of it, or like was there like some sort of like, you know, I don't know, I guess we did touch on hope, but like what did you kind of experience?
um, I guess it was one of those things. Obviously, that he was in hospital, and every day, like my mum would put on the group chat, like, "Oh, so like the updates for today," and because obviously he was on a ventilator, like we always got told that having COVID is kind of like a roller coaster. Like there can be bad days, and then there'll be good days. So like it was all about like his oxygen levels, and when they were at a good level, it was like, "Oh yay, like so good." But then obviously the bad day, it's like, "Oh okay," but then there's always tomorrow, and like every time, say my mum would call me, I'd like freak out a bit, or like every day I'd be anxious, I say, to see the message because I don't know what it was going to be. I remember one time I was at the pub and it was like in the evening, not that late, and my mom called me, and like I missed the call 'cause I didn't see it, and then I called her back, and I was like, my heart like dropped, but she'd only called me by mistake. But
Yeah.
it was just, yeah. I think I've gone on tangent, but
No, please do. Please do.
um, but yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know, a shock. Like I get like, yeah, you just didn't think. I just thought, oh, it'll be okay, as you would, and also,
Yeah.
yeah, especially because I said that obviously so many people, or like, I've heard of stories like I'd like say to my friends as well, like, oh, like I'm really worried, like this is gonna happen, and obviously they're gonna be like, don't be silly, like obviously he'll pull through, obviously it'll be fine, like whatever. But yeah, because I was obviously at home on that day. I went to the hospital, and like he didn't look great, but they were like it should be. Was like hopefully there's still hope. Like we think he'll be okay. And then we got called up again to go back at like 10 p.m. at night, and I was just kind of like, surely not, kind of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you remember? I mean, this is a quite difficult question, but
Mm-hmm.
do you, and don't answer if you don't feel comfortable, but do you remember like your last conversation with him?
Well, I was at home. I was at home in just like in October before he kind of felt ill. I was at home that weekend, or yeah. I can't really remember really what a physical conversation was, but I always used to say to him, he always used to be, oh, like text me back in Leeds. Then I obviously went back to Leeds, messaged him, whatever, and then because he was so poorly in hospital, like he couldn't like he was too unwell to message me back and stuff. So everyone was like, oh, like you could always message him and like he'll see it, but he just, and obviously because of mask, it was hard for him to call and stuff. But my last message that I got from him was like on my birthday. He was in hospital on my birthday, and I got like a happy birthday, sweetie, blah blah blah. But that was basically the last message that I got off him. But yeah, whenever I used to like call home and stuff, I'd always speak to my mom. My dad would just be in the background
Oh,
doing
really?
whatever he was doing.
Doing dad things.
Doing dad things, yeah, 100%. So yeah, we never really like phone called a lot, I'd say. Obviously, I get to when I'm at uni, I'm like, oh, like I'm not so to dad. I'll obviously give him a call, but yeah, he was mother.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a hard one. Obviously the whole, last conversations, it's it's not something you really want to think about, because like you don't realize, I think you don't realize this until you're experiencing people coming towards the end of their life, but you don't realize
Mhm.
how short life is, and how like you need to kind of, each time you're with someone, like really just appreciate that conversation, because
Yeah, 100%.
there isn't like this certainty, that this thing could be your last. I mean, I know a lot of people don't think in that manner because their parents aren't in hospital and struggling to
Yeah.
breathe, but it's something I've obviously come to be a lot more aware, just with
100%.
but yeah, if you just don't mind sharing, just tell us a little bit about your dad and like what your kind of relationship was like, and yeah, any stories, what the man was like.
He was always a bit of a joker. Like he always tweet like the dad jokes. Like if I ever had like, let's say a new friend or somebody who was at home, and my dad was always like, oh, like I'm Talia's older brother. That's what he used to say to them all.
That is such a dad joke.
Isn't it? Obviously, it was like a typical bloke where he like liked his cars and his watches, and like my car was like up for renewal, and he was like, Catherine, so what car do you want? And I'm like, I don't really know. I don't really care. Like that's your hobby, not mine. But yeah, we were close, especially because like I was the youngest daughter, so I was kind of like daddy's little girl.
Yeah.
And he used to have like nicknames for everyone. Like he used to call me everything as a camera. He used to call me Piglet. And like it stuck. And like one of my close friends, her dad calls me Piglet now as well. And it's just
Oh,
like
really?
every message on my phone would be like, oh, like Piglet, can you do this? Da, 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 da. Like every message used to like sign off with on like WhatsApp, it'd be like dad. Obviously I know it's from dad. But yeah, he was a funny guy. Like he used to obviously like when I was growing up, obviously, get it. I wasn't a naughty child or anything, but to be a bit mouthy. And
Yeah.
like my dad had quite a short temper. So anything wrong, which I didn't think was wrong, like he'd just go so angry at me. But then he'd always have a softy and get like be over it. There was one time when so it took me quite a few times to pass my driving test, and
How many times?
I remember 8.
What? 8? Are you?
I know.
Bloody hell! The insurance companies better not be listening to this. Jesus.
So I really wanted to like give up. My dad was quite at first, like he'd never give up. Was always like no, you have to, you've come this far. And I remember like on my 8th test, I remember coming in like after my test, and my dad was like, "Oh, how many times is it now?" I was like, "Oh no, I've passed." And he was like just crying, like it was just so nice. But there was one time when I had my first car, and it was like a little Citroen, and it had like a screen in it. So like when I was reversing, you could see where I was going, and I live on like a bit of a main road, and I was reversing. I was like coming from my friend's house, and like I like reversed into his car, and and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what I've just done. So I was like, oh gosh. So like the damage didn't look that bad on his car. Obviously, I was like shaking. I was so scared to tell him. And then I tried to like kind of nothing had kind of happened. But obviously my mum heard like this loud bang from outside the house. And then I was like, oh, like I kind of crashed into dad's car, and I think he wasn't very happy because I did crash into his headlight and then burst all the electrics in the car. But he moved his feet for nearly a week, but he got over it.
Mate, honestly, I think dads like my dad is weird, right? Like whenever I've never crashed my car, but I've had like little scratches, like
yeah.
And I feel like it's such a dad thing. Like I once had like the smallest scratch, like it could have been from I don't know, like a branch or whatever. And he comes to me, he pulls me aside, he's like, "Joe." And like, bear in mind, like I parked my car really far away from the house just so he doesn't see it. It was like a tiny scratch, but he comes to me, he was like, "Can you explain the scratch on your car?" And I was like, "Dad, you're such a weirdo. How the hell have you seen that? It was the smallest thing." He was like, "Just yeah." But yeah, it's that's quality. 8 times to pass your driving test.
I know.
Wow.
They say the more experience, though, the more times.
They do say that. They also say that. To be fair, what's his name? Jenson Button, the F1 driver. I think took him 2 times to pass it. But not that you've got a career in F1. I mean, if you want, maybe who knows. But yeah, your dad sounds like quite the character.
He was. He just had all these like funny, I feel like nicknames for people, and like my mum was saying that like when people obviously found out that he passed and like stuff, so we were just not so surprised by like surprised how liked he was. We didn't realize how many people liked him and like thought so highly of him, which is obviously a nice thing to know. Yeah, we just didn't realize. Like mom was like, she's never seen so many like men and like people cry and like like you didn't realize how many people he actually did like touch.
I guess it's that thing, like you don't realize like the people you do touch in your lives until like like the same with mom. I mean, I think for women it's a bit different, like, but because maybe a bit more sociable, but the sheer amount of messages you receive, it really puts into perspective how like even a two, like I found in the Shiva whenever people talk about my mom, it could be like, oh, I once met her in the coffee, or I had like a short conversation with her. She was so lovely. It could have been like such a short conversation, but like things like that really stick. So like that for me was like quite a nice thing to hear, I guess. But Yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed this chat. Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining me. But I always like to kind of wrap it up on this one note, and
Hmm.
you know, if so, what kind of, if you were to have a conversation with your dad, what is it you'd say?
That is a good question. um, I guess like thank you in a way. I feel like I obviously was always really appreciative for everything he did, but obviously you always think like maybe didn't show it as enough as I should have, or I don't know, or anything. Just I guess I'd happily have a conversation about anything. I talked to him about cars if he really wanted me to. But yeah, just like I don't know, just yeah, like thank you.
Yeah,
I feel like I wouldn't be like as not cliche as it sounds, like the person I'd say without him, but I wouldn't be like. I think the reason why I'm kind of so strong is why I like a family is because of him, and like he never he never gave up on anything, which is kind of feel like a trait that like I have now. Yeah.
that's really nice. Yeah, thank you again. It's been a really lovely chat, and
Thank you for
yeah,
having
I
me.
mean, just no, it's been my absolute pleasure.
I just want you to find your truth and stick to it. I know you'll be okay. I know it. From the bottom of my heart, I know it. I love you, Papa.